I would like to say good morning to this second day of the main program, third day of our conference, counting also the pre-opening and the workshops. We have again a tight agenda that is going to go on until 10:30. So we have, of course, some sad news. The second keynote speaker, Mr. Servel, will not be able to join us for personal reasons. He informed us today. So we can have a bit more networking time, I think, but also more time to discuss with our keynote speakers. At first, we would like to, we will welcome Mr. George Stephanopoulos to speak to us for 5–10 minutes. He's the General Manager of Greek Mobile Operators Association since 2008. He has experience in telecommunication field, holding positions such as quality management, investment relations, regulations, and strategy. So his role is GMOA, key role as operator of mobile networks at the 5G market, investment obstacles, and respective opportunity the Greek market has from investment. So I would like to welcome Mr. Stephanopoulos and you to interact with him in order to understand what goes on in this part of the world and how we are part of the 5G ecosystem. So, Mr. Stephanopoulos.
Good morning, and to all of you, and welcome to Athens for those who have traveled from abroad. We were just discussing, as I came in, that maybe this is the most exciting time in terms of the industry. Times of change, globalization, and the rollout of strategies that change the everyday life of people and re-engineer the operations of companies in every sector of operations. In this context, I would like to refer to a few points about where Greece stands today as part of a European effort to upgrade networks and deliver services related to 4 and 5G networks today. The Greek market is in the middle of the worst economic crisis that has experienced post-war. In terms of size, it has decreased to about half, and more than half the size it had about 7 years ago, which was the peak of the economic activity in the country. And similarly, EBITDA has reduced by more than 50%. But in the middle of this crisis, operators operating in the country, which it's a 3 market operators, have managed to remain healthy and improve in terms of the investment profile recently. The more recent good news is that in 2015, investments, CapEx, has increased by 35%. And this could improve as we go forward. This is key when we talk about a country where the investment has been the key issue in the last few years. And for economic recovery in the country, we need more than 100 billion euros to be invested in the country in the next 7 years in order to have parity with the de-investment that has taken place in the last 6 or 7 years. So what is the role of communications industry in economic recovery? On the one aspect, it has to do with investing in infrastructure to match plans within Europe and within the globe to roll out networks, ultra-fast networks, fiber networks in the country to deliver 4G, 4.5G networks and eventually 5G infrastructure in terms of mobile communications, and to roll out services that will be relevant to the economic activity in the country. The other issue relates to modernizing the economy in Greece. As it happens in every economy, the Greek economy also goes through a phase of digitization. This is relevant to all sectors. It relates to re-engineering the electricity industry, the water management industry, the gas industries. It relates to the developments in the car industry and how this is reshaped, and connectivity, and the proliferation of digital services around car management in the globe and in our region. It relates also to digitization of the government and its operations in the country, which is also vital in order to deliver a different experience in terms of the relationship between the citizen and the state, the enterprises and the state. Therefore, in terms of transformation of the economy, the digitization and the modern infrastructure is key in order to enable integration of Greece into Europe in a more meaningful way. In terms of the prospects and obstacles to deliver those networks, the first thing is that I mentioned that we have healthy operators who operate in a country where investment is key, and these operators are able to deliver investment plans for the next 3 or 4 years that will generate investment in the region of about 2 billion euros. And they relate to creating the next generation networks which are in line with European plans to deliver the digital agenda across Europe. In terms of the overall activities, what is key is to link more industry operations, the academic life, and research and development activity in the country. So part of our discussions as an industry with academia is to how to enable this relationship to grow further. So one of the ideas we are working on is to create an incubator that will be more focused on ICT operations of Greek ICT schools. And it is in our plans to go ahead with such an initiative in the next 6 months. Hopefully, that will be in conjunction with other plans that will aim to generate new enterprises focused on technological innovation and increase the number of people who are working actively within the country and internationally in the ICT field. Presently in Greece, we have considerable activity in terms of new and upcoming companies. This activity is generating about 400 million euros of revenues annually. And the number of companies involved is in the few hundreds. The aim is really to create an ecosystem that will be part of other international ecosystems, of course, that will encompass a few thousand companies, because Greece is lagging behind about 1/10 of the speed of generating new enterprises in this technological innovation ecosystem. So hopefully our initiative will enhance the activities of linking universities with the industry and produce results that will regenerate the economy locally in terms of new enterprises. In terms of infrastructure and its development, it is also key to have a more productive relationship with the state in terms of licensing procedures and enabling new technologies to proliferate fast. The contradiction in Greece is that we have had a history of network rollout, which is matching other markets. For example, in 4G rollout, the coverage, population coverage-wise, is within the first 10 markets in Europe. But in terms of take-up of services, the market is lagging behind. To give you an example, in terms of e-commerce, the total activity in Greece is single digit, is below 3% of the total market value of goods sold and bought, and which is dramatically different picture with what is happening in other markets. So there is a dramatic need to increase the take-up of services. This will be facilitated by new innovative companies, but also by comprehensive government and industry policies so that whole sections of the economy are digitized massively in the next 5 years, which is critical for Greece achieving targets, fiscal targets, for example, in terms of the shadow economy, and it's in order to minimize the impact in the overall numbers. So the digitization strategy is key. The new innovation that will come out of universities and out of the industry as a whole is key in order to facilitate change in the country. My last point, which I would like to finish with that, relates to what the topic of your conference is today, 5G development. 5G strategies are part of a European dream of creating a European strategy in telecoms. It started back in the early 90s and even before that. And it is one of the key success stories of the European dream to create a market, a single market that is based on infrastructure, and part of that key infrastructure is communications. And regaining initiative in Europe is now focused around the 5G, in inverted commas, dream. So it is key to realize part of the global aspirations of developing in the planet modern mobile communications. It is also part of the European dream to contribute to that, to that dream. So my only comment, which I would like to restrict it since I've been asked to, is that in this time, which is a time dominated by news about Brexit, it is very difficult for me, being part of the history of this industry since the onset, to understand the logic, the sense behind escaping from the European dream when all this energy has been devoted to build and realize the European telecommunications infrastructure and aspirations about the development of the industry. It is key to focus on reinvigorating the strategy about mobile communications and giving essence to that by creating common infrastructure in Europe, which is really giving essence to what Europe of the future would be and what kind of competitive advantage and contribution and value it can create for Europe and the world around it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stephanopoulos, for providing the insight of, from the perspective of the local community here. I think, as I said also yesterday, that it is important for our visitors to interwork with the local community and find synergies. I would like now to move to the keynote, main keynote speaker for this morning, which is Dr. Chi-Lin Ai of China Mobile. She will speak to us about the title of the talk is Midpoint of 5G Journey. Some words about Chi-Lin Ai. She graduated from Stanford. She has a rich both research and industrial experience. I just quote a few things. She has been with AT&T, but she's also involved on the IEEE transactions on communications. Since 2011, she's with China Mobile, and she's spearheading 5G developments, R&D. She has been involved in Green Touch, in NFV, in WWRF, and also she's an advisor, for instance, in various parts of the world, like in Singapore, in NRF. So, Mrs. Chi-Lin Ai, the floor is yours. The plan is to have a, let's say, a 40-minute presentation, and then we can spend time in questions.
Good morning. Thanks for the kind introduction. But Panagiotis, letter I in Greek is pronounced as what? The letter I in Greek is pronounced as? Oh, geez. Okay. In US, 90% of the population or more would say I. But in Europe, typically my experience is the other way around. 90% plus would say E. Okay. Actually, my last name is pronounced as E. Okay. Anyway, it's a great honor to be here. I want to thank Louis for the invitation and congratulate organizers for such a great event. And also, I want to express my appreciation for every single one of you that's in this room this morning, because I know how hard it is to resist the temptation that the Greek coastline would offer. Hopefully, there will be something that you'll enjoy and would be interested in that I'm going to share with you. Okay, first the title, why midpoint of 5G journey? Some may say we haven't even started the 5G journey because 5G is not here yet. So actually, I meant midpoint of a journey to pursue 5G. Okay, so then this is midpoint. Okay, let me make sure I'm doing the gadget correctly. Okay, good. The midpoint, because we actually started thinking about 5G even before we deployed 4G. That was year 2011, looking at what's happening next as really a far advanced exploration. And so from 2011 to 2020, we are right now at midpoint. That's one way to view it. The other way, perhaps, since 2013, well, this is China's IMT 2020 promotional group that targeting the 5G. I think many of you are familiar with, but it's not alone. Around the same time, 2013, there were plenty of forums, whether it's regional representing or academic institute. Anyway, lots of entities with 2020 or 5G popping up about that time. And of course, you all know that finally last year, with all the enthusiasm and effort, ITU had shared with us this, taking all the input from everyone. I don't need to explain this because I'm sure you have seen this 10 times more than you needed to, okay? But anyway, in the meantime, lots of rush, too much passion, hurrying, and some people seem to think that the 5G should be here tomorrow. So, in that sense, our journey has already passed the midpoint almost. But anyway, I hope we can discuss at the end whether we are in the midpoint or where we really are. Anyway, let's see where we really are right now. I come from China Mobile, and many of you by now also know that we are in scale the largest mobile operator. In addition to, we have about 1 million 2G base stations, 500,000 3G base stations. This is what we had recently managed to deploy in 2.5 years. We have now already almost 1.3 million 4G base stations. Our target by the end of this year is 1.4, but we for sure will exceed that number because every year we exceed our number. And among the 835 million subscribers that we are serving, already almost half, 409 million, have upgraded to 4G. And we expect that number to be no less than 500 million by the end of this year. So looks exciting, right? And even for the population coverage, we have already reached 86% 4G coverage in our territory, sorry. Anyway, looks exciting, but is that the whole story? Thank you. I don't know, this probably. That's the other side of the story. Okay, look at our revenue, look at our profit. Yes, our traffic is growing, more or less double, or some year a little lower, some year a little higher. We have a record of, in 5 years, 81 times, so that's more than double annually. But you see the revenue? basically flat. And worse, profit going down. And we are not alone. If you review most of the traditional operators like us, you will see the number not that beautiful. The revenue is pretty much flat. And most of the operators cannot maintain positive profit growth consecutively. And this is not a new phenomenon. It has been going on for, if not 10 years, 5 or more. So amidst that, what to do? First, we certainly are still plowing ahead in terms of our 4G network. We are in the phase of 4G plus now, of course. So on the base we already deployed, we are trying to get the coverage to be even wider, and the penetration to be even deeper, and the capacity to be even thicker where it's needed, and bringing new technology as soon as they may be available. For example, carrier aggregation. We already have 2 component carrier aggregation, which makes the bandwidth 40 megahertz, double of the 20 megahertz. And we are in the process also of deploying uplink with that bandwidth, and then downlink increase further to 3 component carrier. That would be 6 megahertz bandwidth for our 4G plus network. And just a few years ago, considered as a revolutionary key technology, massive MIMO for 5G. It's already utilized in our 4G network. This is, I think last year, September, the first 128 antenna massive MIMO, or kind of a version of a 3D MIMO 4G base station in the middle of Shanghai city that we have deployed. And as we're speaking, that number is increasing to somewhere around 30 in Shanghai alone. And of course, in other parts, we have 31 operating companies. Shanghai is just one of them. The other are also deploying this technology. But anyway, let's get back to where we started, 2011. In 2011, we already saw the alarming performance of operators, including ourselves and most of the major ones in the world. And in 2011, there was no triangle from ITU. There was no clear identification of, in addition to enhanced mobile broadband, we have the 2 other categories of the IoT clearly spelled out. But we know that the next generation has to be even faster. We have to turbocharge it, the data rate, capacity, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the whole story. We need to rethink a lot of fundamentals, because to be sustainable, to have a healthy future in our industry, at the time, we already recognized that there are 2 keywords. Some of you probably have heard me talking about those keywords too many times also. Just for the 1 or 2 of you that haven't heard it here, green and soft. And green is end-to-end efficiency. And the soft is end-to-end agility. And in the early days, when I started talking about these 2 words, I think green, there's no objection. Everybody accepts green is very important. But in our industry, in the communication technology industry, at that time, to say soft is central, soft is important to us, requires some effort, actually. And I had to always remind everyone the situation of, the fundamental difference of our DNA and the OTT's DNA. We have been traditionally very hard, hardware-oriented, hard. That's why our time constant is orders of magnitude higher than OTT industry. We take years to do something new. OTT can do something new from morning to the afternoon, a new release, because they're very soft. Okay, so anyway, now soft is a global consensus for our industry, so there is no need to debate that. But at the time, starting with the 2 keywords, green and soft, efficiency and agility, with that, well, we have gone through 4 generations. You know, history can tell us any industry that has gone through 4 generations had reached a certain level of maturity. Okay? So you cannot think in a traditional way. You cannot take the implicit assumption, continues the same old way on the same track. So we started rethinking everything for the sake of 5G. So, I mean, this one, even though I know that the second keynote speaker is missing today, but, and I have a little extra time, but I can tell you that this one page I can speak for a whole day, so I'm not gonna elaborate the detail. Some of you have heard a lot of the content there already, but basically, we rethink every aspect of our system from top to toe, from core to access to the interface, from the way that it's realized, from the control plan to the topology to protocol stack. But hopefully, the material following will give you some idea. Actually, some of the early thoughts were published in some of these references you are interested in. But it has been a very interesting journey, actually. And first of all, by rethinking fundamentals, we have very early on come up with a realization. That is, the previous generations, the focus has always been on air interface revolution. Every generation is basically characterized by TDMA, CDMA, or DIM plus MIMO. But 5G, no. Air interface will still be important, like the NR, the new red work that's now being pursued in 3GPP. The new air interface is an important piece, but more importantly is the network. The network, the network, the network. And also now I think this is also a global consensus. That's no argument about it, because this time around, we have to have a complete overhaul of how the network from core to access is designed. And actually, the previous rethinking, number 2, rethink Ring and Yang, our early conclusion is that no more quote cells, no more classical cells, okay, in our access network. And to generalize, to broaden it, actually we used user-centric network, EuCN, as a keyword for it, because our traditional system, without explicitly, I think, recognizing it, we were very much base station-centric, cell-centric. But this time around, no, user-centric. Okay. Now, so end-to-end, some of these are kind of mixing with the later development of our industry that I think the 3 cloud is a general consensus, even though I think we need to go beyond 3 cloud, because that's a concept, that's a philosophy, that's not a design. But in principle, in the concept of 3 cloud, we want to have very smart and open control cloud. We want to have very high efficient forward cloud, data plan cloud. And we want to have, above all, because actually, even though core network has become more and more complex and important these days, but in our industry, originally, all of the, I think, I would say 90% of the struggle and effort and breakthrough were really in the access. This time around, very importantly, the access cloud needs to be really flexible. And we have some of the key technology or family of technology that we're highlighting there. For user-centric network, CRAN and GFI are key components there. And for the air interface, the SDAI, MCD would be a very important element. And I'm gonna elaborate a little bit on that. Okay, EuCN. EuCN is a very, I think the core is going away from the traditional base station-centric approach. EuCN is user-centric. But how do you make it user-centric? There are many ways to look at it. You can say that it's intelligent and smart, and you can look at the functional split. You can look at the new topology. But all in all, we summarize it to 4 aspects. First of all, the core network and the radio access network, in terms of their traditional function partition, there has to be a rethinking. And of course, there's major restructuring of the RAN. And really, this all leads to something we call turbocharged edge. Okay, turbocharged edge, there may be some of you now talk about the mobile edge computing, mobile edge cloud. I think in idea it's similar. Basically, you will see the importance of the edge showing up. The edge of the network will be, I would actually say that for operators like us, will be where, is this working? This is okay? Okay. The edge will be where most of our value, our capability, our differentiation will take place for operators, okay? And of course, in the end, this UCN needs to have the capability of offering a service, the slice, network slice or slice as a service, so that this time around, not only we are once again turbocharging a horizontal platform for general public like us, we are also bringing embedded vertical slice in our infrastructure in an integrated, elegant manner. Okay, now, moving time back a little bit, CRAN. Now, I think there are very popular terms, SDN, NFV, CRAN. These are global consensus for our future. But CRAN had gone through a very tough time, actually, probably without known to most of the people in our industry. CRAN was being rejected in 2011 by vendors, by operators, even by our own headquarters, because CRAN, with the 3 phases of a roadmap. The first one is centralization. You centralize the baseband processing. That was a very simplistic time and view. But to do that in 2G and 3G era, easy, busy, no problem. You only see the advantage of the TCO savings and everything, and energy savings. But when it comes to 4G, for our 20 megahertz carrier, a single carrier, 8 antennas, our CRAN requires a front-haul bandwidth of 9.8 gigabits per second. So at that moment, our headquarters say, stop, forget it. And most of our friends here, the vendor industry, also say, forget it, we don't like it. Why are you pulling the CPRI, which should be an internal interface, to a long distance and trying to even make it open? Anyway, long story short, we felt that this is definitely the right direction to go because CRAN brings us a revolutionary evolution for the RAN. Okay, and I can explain that for 1 hour, but no, let me skip that. But basically, it can help us upgrade the current network. It also should be a starting point, part of the essential enabling element for the next generation design. So we persevered. I think a couple years at least passed that we were focusing on overcoming the 4G front-haul barrier. And there were a couple nice workshops talking about front-haul, back-haul, mid-haul, X-haul, etc. On the first day of this event. I think it's clear that this has been recognized and dealt with sufficiently. So we have overcome the front-haul barrier for 4G. However, that may not be enough for 5G, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But that was the first phase, centralization of CRAN. The second phase of a collaborative processing that CRAN would enable being done much more elegantly has been pursued from CS to JT, JR, from coherent to non-coherent joint processing. there are various scenarios, various solutions being pursued, but one thing is clear: in addition to saving actual dollar, the TCOs, CRAN actually helps improve the performance of the system. So actually, as of this year, China Mobile has already declared this mode of deployment as the preferred deployment solution for our 4G network going forward. And the third step, the cloud step of CRAN, RAN virtualization. There is I joke that it is the final frontier of these paths, because the latency challenge using virtual machine to realize the RAN functionality. Of course, you can do different partitioning, etc., but the challenge is great because the traditional virtual machine architecture was used to basically handle upper layer applications. And even though we know that nowadays, even data centers are going to bring some accelerators for the big data analytics, but traditionally, the virtual machine was sufficient for higher layer applications. But for our RAN processing, our baseband processing, the latency is a big issue. So we've been working very hard with Linux Foundation, with Wind River and Intel, and quite a few, I would say, IT industry main players in dealing with that, and since 2013. And so far, we have some success in terms of interruption or virtual machine communication. All the latencies, we managed to reduce it by one order of magnitude, but there's still room to make our effort in, and hopefully we'll get more of you to join, because this is really almost like the final frontier for us. To realize the SDNV realization, not only in the core, but all the way to RAN, through RAN. And we also, for this purpose, have set up a testbed in Tsinghua University campus in Beijing. So if you have good ideas, we can make use of that and do something together. Now, good news is, with the persistence, CRAN is a global consensus. It's an important element of the future. Some people just call it Cloud RAN, some people call it vRAN, same thing. And of course, in the process, I have to say that some of the key SDOs, our industry alliances, had actually been very valuable for us. Not only NGMN from 2011 were very active in the study and the pursuit of CRAN. Of course, I think we were the one who launched that program. And also, at the end of 2012, when ETSI was ready to launch NFV-ISG, we got a hold of the initial draft of the white paper, release 1, managed to make a tiny itsy-bitsy modification. We were kind of happy and proud about that, because there was no time to make big changes. But the original white paper of NFV only covered core network. It went all the way to GGSN and SGSN of the edge. There was no access network in it. So for lack of time for more complete revision, we just replaced the GGSN and SGSN wording by RAN. And that helped greatly, I would say. That it not only extended the NFV's scope all the way from core network to the radio access network end to end, but also I think the platform helped bring broader awareness and acceptance of this particular path. Anyway, the others, I think I'll leave it to you to read. And I just want to touch upon also the turbocharged edge aspect, because really, really this is going to be very important for operators in the future. Actually, even as early as 2012, we were using the CRAN platform to demo and experiment with the service on edge. We did have an official demo in Barcelona, beginning of 2014, but that was the first time we put together not only upper layer applications such as the video services, but also the network monitoring and control function as an application, co-hosting this on the soft base station of CRAN. Because if we are using servers, you can launch virtual machine of different level function, no problem. So this was, of course, the baby step at the very beginning, but really I think it is really led us to our turbocharged edge, and also is very much in sync with the mobile edge computing, mobile edge cloud, or whatever other name that you may call it. And in the process, we have already have done several both lab tests and field tests using caching and service optimization and the local breakout, several different variants of, I think, the fundamental MEC capability. One of which that I think worth mentioning is something we did not long ago outside of Shanghai in the Formula One racetrack, where we used a local breakout and an MEC server to provide multi-visual angle, real-time broadcasting. I think the size is it's quite I think significant. It's 90. I cannot see. Well, 90 small cells, but in a CRAN configuration, basically, and with the MEC server co-hosted at the cloud center, and there was 100 users in this trial. The performance, I think the user experience was great because it only incurred half a second delay with this system, comparing to your being right there watching it, half a second. A reference point would be the traditional way would be collecting this video information to the back-end server somewhere in the network and then sending back to the viewer. And that, I think, typically end-to-end around is 50 seconds. So half a second versus 50 seconds, that's 2 order magnitude improvement. Of course, maybe it's not surprising, but this is a very important capability that the Mac or turbocharged edge will provide. Okay, I said earlier that we have overcome, finally, with a lot of help with the partners, some of you in the room, the front haul barrier for 4G deployment, mainly using WDM technology. By the way, side note, I was talking to Professor Paulo, someone who actually did the project Futon early on. I'm still very curious about that technology path because initially when we were stuck in 2011 about whether CRAN has a future or not, I thought ROF and WDM would be logical solutions to pursue. And I always had a higher hope that, I always had wished that ROF would succeed because I thought that would be even much more cost effective. But somehow, up until today, that path didn't succeed. And so if 5G PPP or if ETSI would be interested in relook that technology path, I think that would be great because I never really got a solid scientific quantified answer why that path is, kind of go down a cliff. Anyway, now about going forward, 5G. We know that 5G, the carrier bandwidth will be much wider. We know that 5G will start with a very large number of antenna elements. Now, current front haul CPRI, as is defined, is a TDM IQ sampling, and the bandwidth requires is directly linearly proportional to those parameters. So even though with WDM solution we have solved the 4G front haul issue, we don't think without new design that would be sufficient for 5G era. So we started thinking about the next generation design. And there is a side story. I think some of my friends already know that because we felt that we would like to combine some feature of the front haul with some feature of the back haul. In particular, we would like to have a next generation architecture or interface where this bandwidth requirement for the connectivity would be much more dependent on the actual traffic load, just like the traditional backhaul, as close as possible rather than being just linearly proportional to how wide your bandwidth, how many antenna you have, etc. And so we actually, in the 4G era, we were looking at the different function partitioning for CPRI on the traditional interface. But by 2014, when we started thinking about 5G, we felt that function partitioning will still be a key aspect of it. But in addition, we would like this next generation interface to be able to be transported on something like Ethernet. So statistical multiplexing, multi-point to multi-point reconfigurability would all become possible rather than currently it's just a point-to-point TDM. So there's a lot of work went on, and I think some of the key finding is that we first need to decouple the antenna-related processing and the non-antenna-related processing. The first one, you should leave it to the remote point still, and then the non-related, you can partition it upwards. And secondly, you should partition the user-related processing and the cell-related processing. The cell-related will be left probably more towards the remote side, whereas the user-related can go up. And finally, we also found that potentially the sweet spot of the uplink and downlink partitioning may not be at the same place. Okay, so these are all very interesting findings, but anyway, we don't have final solutions of the design, but in the meantime, we have already launched a standard working group of NGFI in IEEE. It's 1914, and this one actually is kind of a focal point of earlier work that we did related to NGFI in both AO2.1 in the TSN community, as well as the 1904 in the form of Radio over Ethernet, ROE, the 1904.3 actually. All of this with the establishment of 1914 is gonna be consolidated and linked up. And I think there's, okay, so there are 7 founding members, but right now we have, I think, 40 companies signed up and more than 100 frequent online participants. And there was the first working group face-to-face meeting held 2 months ago in Silicon Valley. I think it's in Santa Clara. It was very warmly received and also participated, and we have very high hope that good work will come out of this standard working group. And the reason why we went to IEEE is because this is another aspect that traditionally 3GPP would look at. Actually, 3GPP, with many of you probably here, would rather not look at this part as a standardized part of the system. So IEEE was a good platform to have this standard working group launched. And in addition, we are co-chairing the ITUT IMT 2020 focus group there. And the front haul transport is also, NGFI actually is also a keyword and a key effort that is being looked at there in ITUT. So hopefully, and we are also submitting lots of contribution into 3GPP's 5G work in the past few months. So hopefully with this, we will ideally find 3GPP as well as IEEE and the other SDOs forming a complementary effort to find the solutions for NGFI. And the other one that I want to spend a few time is SDAI. I think the idea, I've said it quite a few times, is very simple in the sense that in 5G era, we are looking at a system that will have vertical slices in the network and will be providing extremely different applications and scenarios. If you look at the 8 extreme KPIs that ITU has set out for 5G, do you think we actually need to come up with a single air interface like in the previous 2, 3, 4G era, that this single air interface would satisfy all of these extreme KPIs? That would be a complete irrational over-design in most of the cases, and it makes no sense. And it's going to be very difficult to come up with such a design. And secondly, alternative approach would be you actually come up with 3, 4, 5 totally independent design for each of those extreme usage scenario, optimized for the extreme KPI that needs to be satisfied in those extreme conditions, and then tie these 3 or 4 or 5 separately designed interface and call them 5G. Well, I'm sure you will say no to that too. So SDAI is, I believe, the logical way, the most elegant way to go forward, which is that you look at all the key functional blocks in this air interface. You look at all the options because, for example, the waveform, there are so many proposals, even though we have realized that most of them are close relatives of OEDM. They just have been named quite differently. I would joke that they were all brothers and sisters, or at least cousins of the same family, but many of them were named with totally unrelated names somehow, different family name even. But there are maybe some new ideas of waveform as well, one of which I would really suggest that you take a look is OTFS, which I think takes a different view of the channel in the system, particularly for very high mobility scenarios, the 500 kilometers per hour scenario. And then the multiple access, which is also really a very hotly pursued area where every company has a proposal. I think up until less than a month ago, there were maybe 5 or 6 prominent ones being thrown around. But after the most recent RAN working group meeting, the RAN 1, RAN 2, RAN 3, RAN 4, in the RAN 1 meeting, this was held in Nanjing actually. Was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Quite recently. Anyway, last month, I think 13 total or 15 total, I lost count. So many multiple access. Okay, every company has one and some company has 2. Well, the company knows, the one that has 2 should know who you are. But everyone thinks theirs is the best and would be the best. But we believe in the end, we should sensibly make a apple-to-apple comparison. I mean, yesterday I asked Ed a question about his RSMA. Of course, Qualcomm always has good technologies, but it looks like most of these new multi-access proposals are either doing spreading, interleaving, or some overloading in either time domain or frequency domain or code domain, or, I mean, there has to be a sensible unified framework, and then probably, hopefully, 2, no more than 3, would be sufficient as the options for this particular one. So SDAI, the key idea is that you will have not just one choice in these key functional blocks. You may have 2 and no more than 3, hopefully. Not a large number, not 13 or 15. Together, this air interface will be more than sufficient to meet respective extreme KPIs and the diverse conditions by efficiently reconfigured for it. And of course, to do that, you will have to have finer characterization of the KPIs and the usage scenarios. I think some of the work will be done here, where in addition to the 3 categories, under each category, you will also have finer characterized scenario and associated KPIs, the study. And as the early stage of the work for SDAI, we kind of felt that first, frame structure is a very important aspect. Okay, there has to be hopefully flexible enough, a unified frame structure. Yesterday, Ed mentioned something about self-contained. We are very interested in self-contained. The only issue is there, some are question, being self-contained, how much overhead, how much cost we are paying for the self-contained. But we believe that will be an important element, important aspect of the future frame structure. And multiple numerology, I think this one will be a must, and it's already kind of a consensus in 3GPP. And then in terms of waveform accesses and also multiple antenna and duplex, all these key aspects, we are looking at as much as possible unified and reconfigurable framework for each of this, and flexible enough to cover the key options that we want to adapt eventually. Okay. All the rethink fundamentals, so far we have 7. We started with 5, but we added rethink front haul, and then the latest was rethink protocol stack. There may be a number 8 in the work, but let me say a few words about the rethink protocol stack. Traditionally, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, in our traditional classical sales idea is that all these functions and processing were being done in the remote side, in each base stations, right? And then you backhaul back. And then with that design, when we want to change the topology of the access network, we are trying to kind of adapt it and kind of try to adjust to what we have. But for 5G, it's opportunity for us to rethink how the protocol stack, the layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, should actually be designed. The first thing is to be user-centric. Instead of a current system, they would find the cell that owns you first, because every one of us is owned by one cell at a single time. So the system will actually identify the cell that owns you first and then find you, okay? In the next generation, we believe the relationship of cell and the user should be reversed, user-centric. The system will find you first. And for you, it will identify which 1 or 2 or 3, in the sense of the traditional cells, will be serving you simultaneously. Okay, so the protocol stack, first of all, will change the cell and the UE relationship. Secondly, because it's not going to be all completed and processed in a single base station, or base station by base station, some of the function will be moved all the way up to the network edge in the cloud center. Some of the function will be actually located in a intermediate cluster spot in the NGFI architecture. So all the traditional from PHY to MAC to ILC to BDCP to RRC, all of their relationship and the partitioning will have to be rethought. This is a very preliminary work. We have a design called MCD, multi-level centralized and distributed. I think we should learn with Etsy coming up with a more interesting name. The MCD is as boring as any engineer can get. Okay, but anyway, it's basically saying that the protocol stack traditional blocks, some of it will be centralized, some will be more distributed, and so we need to design it differently with the cell and the UE relationship changed in mind, and also some of the partitioning will probably happen. Our current design is in the middle of MAC and also in the middle of RLC. And also the exact way to partition also depending on how, quote, ideal the front hole or the NGFI interface capability would be. Okay, I hope I confused you enough with that. 5 minutes, right? Okay, so I'll fly through. So anyway, some of our work and idea we have been demoing in many places. Actually, for Barcelona MWC, we started in 2014, 2015, and then 2016. And as we are speaking, actually right now, there's a MWC Asia or MWC in Shanghai this week. We are demoing the current stage of the SDAI and the Invisible Base Station there. Okay. Some of our work reflected in the Future Forum's 5G SIG white papers. We have published a series of both the overall 5G white paper as well as, I think, a topical white paper. If you're interested, you can download from the website. And then, of course, we work intimately with IMT 2020 5G promotional group. Actually, we chair the requirement working group. We also co-chair the technology working group, and very active in all the other working group as well. And so the series of white paper, you can see kind of the shadow of us being around there. And especially that flower of 5G, what is, it's in Chinese it's very nice, 万物随心智, oh no, 信息随心智，万物触手机. A not so nice translation is there. Information a finger away, everything in touch. But I think overall, it's just like yesterday there was this zero delay, zero distance. The idea is probably global and universal. But anyway, for this forum, I think it's worth mentioning that if you don't know yet, you should, that the major regional 5G platform, including 5G PPP, IMT 2020 promotion group, 5G forum, 5G mobile forum, 5G America, etc., etc. No, it's not 4G America anymore. They renamed it 5G America. Have formed basically a alliance, and starting this year, there will be 2 joint events per year. And the first one just took place actually at the beginning of this month, end of May, in Beijing, and many of you were actually there. And the second one, I believe, will be in Rome in November, sorry. And I think, of course, 5G PPP will be shouldering the main load. Okay, so anyway, there's 5G PPP, lots of major project, and we see some of the fruit of labor being shown there. Congratulations. And in China, we have a series of a national program, one of which is the National Science and Technology Major Project. Okay, for the batch that was launched this year, you can see related to 5G were listed there, other which maybe we are participating in half of them. Lots of effort and opportunities. And of course, in ITU, IEEE, NGMN, NFE, ETSI, CCSA, very busy, working very hard. We are a very small team actually, but we try to be as diligent as we possibly can. And more important, I want to share with you in 3GPP Release 14, there are 3 important study items related to 5G. One is the next-gen end-to-end network architecture study item, which China Mobile is leading. And then the other is the 5G requirements study item, also China Mobile is leading. And then the third one, I think actually may be the most important one, even though they are all equally important, the 3. The 5G technology study item, we are not leading. I think Docomo is leading, but we have been very active actually just in the Nanjing working group meeting. We made more than 50 submissions. That was, for vendors, maybe that's nothing special, but for an operator, I think lots of people were kind of more than surprised and shocked. And, but we are very happy that we have some accumulation through the past 5 years that we could contribute. and hopefully we will get support in that. Now, in RAN 1, I think the most important thing everybody knows, the consensus is the forward compatibility and multiplexing, flexible numerology, and the frame structure. So all of this, I think, is very much in sync with the SDAI idea. But the waveform, multiple access, multiple antenna, etc., those key blocks, there's a lot of work to be done, especially, I think, multiple access and waveform, because we just have too many proposals. There has to be consensus building, there has to be partnership, there has to be apple-to-apple comparison, because everyone would always show their performance in a particular scenario where they are really the best. But you really want to compare them honestly across. And for RAN 2, I think the important thing is the standalone new red, as well as the integration of the new red together with the LTE between the dual connect mode of aggregation and carrier aggregation, which one is upper layer, the other is lower layer aggregation. There are some consensus being formed. One thing I think I want to point out is that there won't be carrier aggregation, meaning lower layer aggregation between the NR and the LTE. I think that makes a very important statement of what NR needs to be. Okay, and in RAN 3, I think a lot of important consensus at this point actually has to do with NGFI architecture, functional partitioning, etc. Currently, we believe we probably want to have a flexibility in the design in terms of partitioning. Probably 3, I think I listed there. 3 possibilities. We can talk about the detail of those 3 possibilities. And we probably want to have the ability to accommodate partition in 3 different places in the future network, if I didn't make it clear. Okay, now the latest meeting, the RAN plenary, I think probably 2 most important messages. One is IoT is very important, even though most of those approved new projects were really 4G plus, not directly 5G related. And then the other thing is, after a lot of struggle, both on-site and, of course, much more before the meeting took place, the non-standalone and standalone debate about NR has reached, I think, a compromise of basically being pursued in parallel in phase 1. Okay, we have done a lot of key technology validation, prototyping, trial testing with many of you in the room. And according to IMT 2020 promotion group's schedule, right now we are kind of in the first phase, the key technology R&D and trial. And actually, this is China Mobile's timeline. We are about to complete our stage 1 key technology trial. But as you probably all are aware, most of the key technology prototype these days are basically based on LTE. It's just introducing new characteristics based on an LTE interface. And we are about to start the second phase on the system concept, where we are hoping to have something that's truly NR proof of concept as the baseline. And then, of course, by the end of next year, we hope to enter the third stage, large scale, where hopefully release 15th early version, the pre-commercial system will be at hand or available for try. And in terms of actual deployment, we are deploying IoT. We haven't made up our mind whether we say we are deploying NB-IoT or IoT, because IoT, of course, is more general than NB-IoT. Okay, it's LTE category 1, category 0 are also IoT. And in addition, I think in our previous generation, especially 2G, there's also IoT. But even though I did not spell the NB-IoT there, but I would say that it's more related to NB-IoT, which is the feature from release 13 and release 14. And then for V2X, which is LTE-V track, we are also actively doing both lab trial and the field trial. And the only concern here is where's the gap between the NB-IoT and the massive IoT corner of the ITU triangle? And where's the gap of the V2X and its enhancement with the URLLC corner of the ITU triangle? I'm hoping I can find some of you to jointly assess that gap. Okay? In addition, even for the top corner of the ITU triangle, EMMB, there's a lot of saying of 4G plus, 4G evolution, the LTE-A Pro will also meet the KPIs like 5G's KPIs. So where's the gap for the NR? I think at this stage, if we call midpoint, that would be one of a very important question. I would urge our community to together to figure it out. Otherwise, I don't understand the difference of a 4.xyzg and 5G. And I'm not sure what we are aiming at if all these three corners were already being addressed with 4G plus, okay? Even though I don't believe that's the case, especially in the network side. Okay, let me just tell you that China Mobile has announced this 5G Joint Innovation Center. This was announced, I think, beginning of this year, where there are IoT, IOV, industrial internet, cloud-enabled robot and drones, and AR, VR as 5 featured open lab with the infrastructure supporting it. And this is a large-scale, cross-industry partnership open platform, and welcome everybody to join. And my final 2 little points is that going into the 5G era, right now, we are actually at the point where there is a deep converging, the real convergence of CT and IT, even though it has been predicted since the 90s. ICT convergence is not a new term. But now we are actually at the DNA level convergence, IT and CT. There's a lot of challenges. Okay, and plus DT, data technology as well, which by itself is a baby still, but it's IT, CT, DT, we are convergent altogether right now. So there's a lot of interesting challenges. Our industry will be transformed. The players, traditional players, will not stay as their traditional role per se, and there will be new players non-existing in our industry today. They are coming. And 2 particular aspects I want to mention. One is the big data analytics. I should tell you that we actually developed a real-time, semi-real-time, big data analytic software engine that we can plug into our current network. Every 15 minutes, we reconfigure, reset parameters of our network to optimize its energy consumption and the resource efficiency, okay? For me, that's a baby form. It's an engineering realization of the potential of a big data analytic can do for the future network. And it shouldn't be an afterthought. So when we are designing it, I'm hoping that we would have a more scientific way of thinking about the potential of big data analytics in the next generation network. And the other thing is this open source community, okay? While we are converging with the IT community, open source, of course, is a major force. And the China Mobile had announced, beginning of this year also, the OpenO, together with the Linux Foundation. And just a few days ago, I also heard that there is a OSM working group being formed in Etsy. I'm hoping that some joint force can happen because there are too many opens. Oh, I say OpenX. There are too many various platforms, and we are being pursued, and we are pursuing others. And it's just a little bit much. I think we all have limited resource and energy. Somehow we need to get more coherent and converge. Okay.
Questions for this super inspiring talk? Luis, I think you need to be first. You have a question? some questions. Alex, over there. Can we get the mic to Alex there?
Hello. My name is Alex Gallis from University College London. Very impressive presentation. Actually, in a space of 3 weeks, I saw 2 of your keynotes are impressive and different. However, you stress the importance of having soft and green in the network, and in particular towards making a user-centric network happen, which is clearly very important, very impressive. I have 2 little kind request for you. Would it be possible to comment on the other part of the user-centric networks, which are the services and application and programmability, to take advantage of this flexibility in the network, and the role of management system to make this happen as well in this new environment, which is soft, nearly 100%.
Well, Alex just asked a question that he himself is an expert in. I'll try to answer your question. I think just like I kid with my friend that we have 6 letters, SDN and NAV, for how many years now? And I am a little bit embarrassed for actually having been a founding member of the NFV Network Operating Council, NOC, because I think the progress actually has been very slow in bringing the real to the bone or in the DNA level integration of the IT approach into our city infrastructure. But it's not for lack of effort. I think one of my team members is leading the next gen end-to-end network architecture study item in 3GPP. And that one at onset had 48 companies co-signed, and now he tells me there are 55. Okay. Why such a large number? It's a record-setting number in 3GPP for one item. Because I think all of us are trying very hard to both learn and figure out what to do on this move. I don't think we have a clear answer, but I can say that is if you look at management or manual management, orchestration, and control and data, if you look at the 3 domain, management, of course, is where it's the most key. That it's where the open API or interface to the third party, to the end user, who we would like to enable their ability to dynamically configure and control and get the slice that they need at the time and where they need, okay? It's easily said than done. What is the service architecture? Okay, we can use all the keywords, the open APIs, and being flexible, and the CU, control data separation. We have, yes, we have open flow, we have open daylight, we have all of this. But how to use that in our system, I think most of us, I mean, I'm certainly still a student. I think we are still learning. And that actually brings me back to one thing I started with, which is, why are we in such a hurry and such a rush? Do we are we allowing us enough time to do things right? Because 4G Plus, LTE A Pro can do a lot. So why is there a need to rush to have something that we call it 5G? And what should be a minimum qualification to be called 5G? Sorry, I am not speaking officially on behalf of China Mobile. I have to make that statement. Okay, it's me as a member of this community for basically almost my entire career. It's my feeling that we need to have a more sensible rethinking of our pace. Because a lot of us are still, even though we already have a very large-scale 4G network, I think many operators in many parts of the world are still at the very beginning stage of deploying 4G. And 4G is not a badly designed system. 4G is after 4 generations of knowledge expertise accumulation. Like I said, that any industry who got into the first generation has accumulated enough maturity and capability. So while we're exploring what 4G can continue to provide us, maybe we should rethink about the pace of a genuine 5G, what it should be, what it needs to have at a minimum. Personally, I feel actually the slicing, the fundamental redesign of the network architecture has to be a very important element to qualify anything as a 5G. I guess I didn't completely answer your question, but I tried. But
thank you.
Time for one more. No? Once again, thank you.
Ed, we need to let Ed.
Let me ask a provocative question.
Good, I love that.
I got many provocative questions, to use your terminology. You just made this comment about speed of doing things here for 5G. Yet I keep hearing from the operators, oh, our standards processes like 3GPP are far too slow. We got to rush much faster because we got to keep up with Google and Facebook and all of that. Just the opposite of what you're saying almost. There's a dilemma here that's going on.
Okay, there has been certainly a lot of criticism or lamenting about how slow the traditional SDO moves. Okay, actually, I would say in that regard, 3GPP is not alone. IEEE can move very slow too. Depends. Okay, but for Google, they are moving very fast. Yes, but I would like to ask, can they move that fast if they did not have the kind of infrastructure we provide? Okay, I'm going to be provocative to say something else related to our industry and our friend and foe industry. I really think, even though in 2011 I said green and soft is very important. But, being soft, yet able to do so many things so fast, it's enabled by what's underneath, right? The hardware, the really hardcore technology that's supporting it. It's because the capability has reached the level that you can, just by writing some code, and get so many new application services and new values out of it. And we should not forget that. And okay. Actually, in a recent meeting with another community, I also had an interesting discussion about why do we need standard body anymore? Let's just rely on open source community. They are so fast, right? Yes, they're very fast. Look at how many open X are popping up. So many open, and everybody wants to be the king in each of these open X. Maybe the world cannot be a purist place. You have to have a hybrid. You have to have this very methodological and very rigid, very careful SDOs. And on the other hand, you can have this, I always liken it to the Western cowboys. They can just forget about the rules and laws and what other people think. Whoever runs the fastest or whoever has the biggest gun at the moment is the law and the rule. We need both, okay? And I don't think one can replace the other. Having said that, again, I said we need to get softer. Our infrastructure, our design needs to have enough flexibility and reconfigurability. But I don't believe this means 3GPP as a platform is outdated. I believe without that, there may be chaos, and it will be difficult to have end-to-end efficiency. Did I answer your question?
This concludes this session. We can take the discussions offline. There is a half-an-hour coffee break, and then we continue with the rest of the program of the day. Thank you very much.